In this video, we're going to be diving into how to create the problem and solution for your business ecosystem. So you start off finding that central singularity point. You create the initial sphere that forms around that singularity. And then you go through the creation cycle. So this is the seed of life within sacred geometry. It's 6 spheres around a central sphere, and in a lot of different belief systems and religions, and even in science, this is seen as a structure that forms a lot of what turns into the rest of reality. So after figuring out exactly how you're going to orient everything around the seed of life structure, again, you're just going to draw in the quadrants. So with each of these quadrants, you're coming up with 4 different places. One is going to be the verse 0, verse 1, verse 2, and verse 3. Today we're starting off with groove 8, verse 0. And this is every time you have verse 0 within this R Story open source operating system, it's always associated with the chord. Similar to what we did yesterday, OS3PI yoga for this it's Sushumna. It's always going to be that for every single one of them. But since this is groove 8, it's going to be chakra number 8. And this next aspect, we're going through the 144.5 PI, which is the Mama protocol. We're going through 369 My PI, community chord, and 432 RPI. That's the Papa protocol. And that's always open source, operating system, and our story. So every single step we go through, that's always going to be how these start off, and the only differentiating factor is going to be that chakra number associated with the groove. So the main aspect when we're discovering the problem and solution for the business ecosystem that we're creating, we're going to be following the story structure that was developed by Dan Harmon. And so with that, in this groove 8 verse 0, we're starting off with you, and this is the main character. It took me a little while to think of this, and I did a lot of research yesterday on this. I want to help small and medium enterprises. I want to help cultural creatives. And I want to help wellpreneurs. All of these terms are kind of weird, but I want to get really clear on who I'm going to be able to impact here. I see myself as a small and medium enterprise. Really, I'm a solopreneur or a one-person business. But I think that's the best way to go here. If you're creating this for yourself, think about who you are. When I found the term cultural creative, it sounded kind of strange, but as I looked into it, people who want to do self-improvement, who want to relate what they do to improve their own life, to improve their community, and also just wellness entrepreneurs, all of these kind of resonate with me. So I'm going to think about if I was marketing to myself, what would I want to do? So that's how I defined you. For this next section, need, I'll just read it out. So this is where you want to define the problem. So you define the main character. What's the problem that main character is facing? That's going to send them into this story. So we can get really clear on exactly what the problem is. Effectively managing all aspects of a business or creative project is overwhelming, at least from my perspective. It takes away from what you love doing most. You can avoid doing what you don't enjoy, like all the behind the scenes business stuff, like finance and all that, but then the business is going to suffer. On the flip side, if you spend too much time on the business side, your soul suffers and you get burnt out, because that's not why you got into it in the first place. So that's the problem that I associated for groove 8 verse 0 chord. Again, just to dial it back a little bit, I'm always talking like groove 8 verse things, and with this, groove is just, this is all based around music, and within this actual stage, groove 8 is how we come up with our game. I think every time you have a problem and you're thinking of a solution, think about it as you creating a game. Similar to yesterday when we were in groove 9 in this same quadrant, we were coming up with the biomimicry aspects of it. So we're sticking with the same biomimicry of eukaryotic cell, the planet, a human, and a tree. But since we're in the groove 8, we're coming up with different associated aspects. So for a cell, we have the cytoskeleton. For the planet, we have tectonic plates. For a human, we have a muscular system. And for the tree, we have fruit. We'll get into that more in the future, but again, that's all you need to know for now. Back in the story structure, we have go as the next step. So you have to say what the goal is. So I want to design, engineer a symbiotic business ecosystem to support my project. That's something, a grand goal that I think will help with the problem statement. And after go, you have to say search. How are we going to search for this solution? And just tie it back to exactly what you're being continuity throughout the entire thing. So that's 0.9.0 governance model. That is the focus that's going to be carrying through this entire thing. So that's why I said that was search within this. Again, just to give a little bit my higher level context, this overall process that we're talking through right now, in the last step, I showed it was Groove 8, our game, and another way to think about that, it's 1.8.0, elevate engagement. All right, so Groove 8, verse 2, values. That's the quadrant we're in right now. So with this, again, this is repeated from yesterday. So OS3PI is just our story open source operating system. 144.5 PI, that's Hue 3, we are all right. 369 my PI is LP0 polymath process, that's the team. And then the 432 RPI is EP0 DAO teaching, that's the actual project. So when we get into this, after we went through you, need, go, search, and now it's find. What do we expect to find if we search for a solution? I expect to find how to start my business ecosystem with a governance model. And then once I find that solution that I'm trying to work through, what do I expect to take away from that? So I always want to tie this back to a benefit associated with one of the governance models. So Rwanda Vision 2050, within that, number 5 is about accountable and stable state institutions, rule of law, and justice for all. So how does that relate to what we can gain from this? So what I think is intentional governance models for a business ecosystem empowers small and medium enterprises, cultural creatives, and wellpreneurs to run a more efficient business, understand institutional law, and influence communities. So that's the overall benefit that I want to gain from this. And it's really good to get clear on that so you know why you're doing what you're doing. After you get clear on the problem, the goal, and some benefits, let's start coming up with a solution. All right, so Groove 8, verse 3 is all about the hypothesis. And in this step, we have OS3PI yoga. Again, that's just the open source protocol, the open source license, GNU GPL version 3. 144.5 PI Mama protocol. This is the public aspect, and this is continuous from before. So this is going to be the groundwater recharge projects. And then the 369 my PI, the private aspect. I'm approaching this as a chief executive officer, and my guiding principle for myself as a CEO is the Tao Te Ching, just because it's really good on governance in general and self-mastery. And then 432 RPI, the partnership aspect, is the Language Institution in Rwanda 2050. So the return within this story, this is the hypothesis, and I'll just read this out for you. It's a combination of the find aspect and the take aspect. So if we teach how to start a business ecosystem master plan with a governance model, then cultural design engineers will be empowered to create more efficient business processes and influence rule of law in their communities. After you have that hypothesis, the final thing you need to do is just figure out how you're going to be changed. And with this, it's kind of where we bring music back into it. With this overall process, you're going to be creating a music playlist. So what song is going to be associated with this process you did here? Within EP0 lesson plan, pick Backroads by Tall, Tall Trees.